שנה ואל נא תתעלם. אלי חמדת, חמדת ליבי, הוא שנה ואל נא תתעלם. אלי חמדת, חמדת ליבי, הוא שנה ואל נא תתעלם. אלי חמדת ליבי, הוא שנה ואל נא תתעלם. אלי חמדת, חמדת ליבי, הוא שנה ואל נא תתעלם. אלי חמדת, חמדת ליבי, הוא שנה ואל נא תתעלם. ישראל, 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 בטח בהשם. ישראל, 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 עזרא ומגינם הוא. ישראל, ישראל, בטח בהשם, עזרא ומגינם הוא. ישראל, ישראל, בטח בהשם, עזרא ומגינם הוא. ישראל, ישראל.
So today we're on the 22nd Torah portion, Vayakel, and this is just one today, so it's just Vayakel, means and he assembled. Just so you know, today is the first of Adar, the 29th. Today is Shabbat Shekalim, so if you want to pay your temple tax, you can go into the Temple Institute, and you can't really pay the tax there, but they give you options of different things to pay for. You can just do general, or you can pick something if you want to do red heifer and actually, they don't. I just did it.
This week they actually sent out a portion that's on their site.
Oh, really?
They sent out a thing about the temple tax urging people to
Oh, okay. I did it last Friday, so I don't know. Yeah, somebody check that out. That'd be cool. Oh, good. Yeah. So, a half shekel, 11.4 grams of silver, which is about $12 in today's currency, so it fluctuates. So if y'all want to take part in that, then I recommend it. Today we're in Exodus 35:1. We're going to go through 38:20. While everybody opens up their Bibles and gets there, I'll just kind of give you my overview, so this way I won't be the one stopping everybody the whole time. And then so I do this. I've been doing this last few weeks, and I like it. All right, good. All right, I'm glad. So for the Peshat of this, the literal, we have Israelites the Israelites, they bring so many gifts for the contribution of the Mishkan that Moshe has to ask them to stop. We have Bazazel and Aholiab. They're gifted craftsmen that construct the elements for the temple. And this is really where it stops. I already wrote that. I didn't want to erase it. But Yah commands Israel not to do any work on the Sabbath day. And it kind of, when you get the building of the Mishkan, this is where Judaism has come up with the 39 different things that they quit doing because it's in context of the building of the Mishkan, the things that these craftsmen had to do, so they put a stop to it, and we can go through that as...
Can you imagine, just think about that for a second. Can you imagine like Lakewood Church, which isn't that Joel Osteen? Okay. Can you imagine Lakewood Church, Joel Osteen getting up there and saying, okay, you can stop ringing, we have enough.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Think about that for a minute, that Moses stood up there and said, okay, we have enough.
Yeah.
So they really were doing it for God. They really were doing it
Yeah.
just for this purpose. And then when they had enough, they stopped it, which is kind of mind-boggling.
Yeah. I mean, if you do the math on how much people were giving and the 600,000 men and the gold weights, I mean, they had over 2,500 pounds of gold. I mean, we're talking $20-30 million worth of gold. You know, no telling what it'd be in today's standards, but I mean, all the jewels and stuff, there's no way of even calculating what all they were bringing and giving and contributing. But I mean, yeah, if in today's standards, it would be hundreds of millions worth of just giving. And it got to the point where, they were so overwhelmingly blessed that they were like, listen, we've collected all the money we need to do all the work that Yah has done. And yeah, you're right. Wouldn't that be amazing if we were doing that? We could do that today and just say that, like, we're set. Let's go do this work that he's put before us. Well, yeah, I'll go ahead and read it. So we're going to go through. explicitly say this, but these are the things, you have the list of the things that Judaism, the 39 things? Huh? Yeah, do you know, like you have a... Oh, okay. So there's 39 things. I think I can find it real quick. Where is Nicole? Oh, it's probably... Okay. So the first set is going to contend with bread making, planting, plowing, reaping, gathering, threshing, sorting, grinding, shifting, kneading, and baking. So that's the first list of things that on the Sabbath you just put aside, and y'all wants to just take a break from it. Garment making, you have shearing, laundering, combing, dyeing, spinning, wrapping, assembling heddles. I don't even know what that is. Weaving, so I won't be doing it probably. Weaving, shearing threads, tying, untying, sewing, and tearing. And this is where Judaism gets the idea you can't even tear a piece of toilet paper on the Sabbath because they don't want you to tear it all, even though these things are applied to garment making. But, it's okay if you want to, in your life, apply these things to other aspects. I understand that. Some people do. Some people have...
When you go to Israel and you stay in a hotel on Friday, when you come around, they do your room every day. On Friday, they bring you a box of toilet tissue that's already been ready.
Yeah.
It's like a box of Kleenex, but it's toilet tissue.
Yeah.
They bring you that on Friday, and if you have an electronic lock on your door, you get a Sabbath key.
Oh, yeah.
And so it's a regular hard key, like a door key. And
Oh,
you
okay.
use that on the Sabbath, so that the little light won't go on and off. It doesn't get you electricity.
Right.
Close the door really hard.
I've seen these really, really cool, like light switch covers too. That they magnetize to your light switch. Yeah. And so, like, if you even
You just leave it on the whole time?
well, yeah, if you go to even turn it off, you can't because
Well,
it's covered. So
yeah.
And the elevators, we were on the Sea of Galilee, and the elevator stopped on every other floor on the Sabbath. And so if you were on like the 15th floor, the elevator stopped on every even floor. So it would stop on the 16th and the 14th. So you could, and the idea was, if you were on the 15th floor, you would take the elevator up to the 16th floor, coming back to your room, and you would walk down because there's less effort in walking down. And if you were on the 15th floor,
That's funny.
you would walk down to the 14th floor to get on the elevator to go down because, again, walking down is less effort on the Sabbath.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. It was
Riding in elevators wasn't even on this list. That's funny.
well, because you can.
because it's
Yeah,
it's automatic.
Yeah. Yeah, I've seen the elevators. They just go nonstop too. They got to just like hop on and shoot up. Hide preparation, trapping, killing, skinning, preserving, smoothing, marking, and cutting. So all those were prohibited. And then construction, writing, erasing, constructing, demolishing, extinguishing, igniting, completing, and transferring. So these are the 39 things that had to do directly with building the Mishkan that they would put aside. And Yah wants us to imply it in our own lives to the things we do today. And, they wouldn't saddle their animals. They wouldn't take them to the Sabbath. Lucky for us, we all ride in cars, and, we're not so weird about it that we feel like we have to all park down the road and walk up to an empty parking lot, because some groups do that too. And, we're called to assemble. So, like, that's the main command here. And he assembled, So the main thing is he wanted to assemble everybody together, and that connotates like this oneness of us coming together on the Sabbath, spending time together, and really getting to to enjoy the Sabbath with other people. If not, just sitting at your own homes. We've all talked about it before that it was different when you lived in the land of Israel, and everybody would take a break, and everybody could walk to their own synagogue that was within a Sabbath day journey, and, you were told to stay a Sabbath day journey, so you stayed part of your neighborhood too, and that makes sense to me, but we can't do that. allowed to.
I'm not saying this is how it should be, but when you have a disagreement, the rabbi rules, and everybody says, okay, the rabbi said it. So the leadership, they studied it out, they thought it out, they prayed it out, and then they gave a ruling, and it brought peace. Whether somebody didn't like the ruling or not was immaterial.
Yeah.
It brought peace. This is what we're doing. And so they don't, or they didn't, synagogue hop. They didn't say, well, I don't like the way they're doing this here, so I'm going to go over there. Because they couldn't, because they had to stay in their room on the Sabbath.
Yeah.
I think in Western ways, we're just taught to do that, bounce from church to church, to the right place instead of
And
just
so,
sticking out.
and so it was worked out.
Yeah.
Instead of just somebody going, at least
Yeah. I'll go to another synagogue, but you're not allowed to.
unity that as Americans, we don't really get. Because we don't like the way something's going, we just go someplace else. Yeah. So anyway, I just thought I'd share that because I
Yeah.
thought it's very relevant when we're talking about assembly and unity.
Yeah. So that's the list of things. The Remez, kind of a hint of the things that I think that comes out, and this is my opinion, everybody would come up here and probably see other things, but Yah's character, I think that like we're really starting to see through the building of the Mishkan, like how it started up on Mount Sinai, Yah's in this cloud on Mount Sinai, and there's a border around the bottom of it, and all the people that are around the bottom, they can't go onto the mountain part. Only the priesthood's allowed onto the mountain. And then above the cloud, only the two brothers, I think, which are a picture of Judah and Israel at the end, we're allowed to enter into this cloud, this presence of Yah. And then we see Yah be like, you know what? I'm not close enough. Like, I want to come closer. And so he was like, build me a Mishkan. Build me a place that I can come dwell among your tents and really be part of what you're doing. And y'all can surround me now. And so he comes closer to the Mishkan. Well, I think that Yah is trying to truly come even closer, and it's Yah's desire to make his people his real dwelling place. And you mind pulling up 2 Corinthians 6, 16, 17? And so I think that like the true thing that, you know, we read that like you are the temple. You got it? 2 Corinthians 6, 16 and 17.
Says 2 Corinthians says, what agreement can there be between the temple of Yah and idols? For we are the temple of the living Elohim. As Elohim said, I will house myself in them, and I will walk among you. I will be their Elohim, and they will be my people. Therefore, Yah says, go out from amidst, separate yourselves, don't even touch what is unclean. Then I myself will receive you.
So there's Yah that through, you know, Rabbi Shaul, he's telling us like the final destination is where he's wanted to dwell. It's always where he wanted to dwell. Even in the few Torah portions ago, he said like, I want you to be my temple. He wants the people to come, but they were too scared to enter up the mountain and all enter into his presence. So Yah had to make accommodations for that. So the Word became flesh and was an example. This is a little hint of the Messiah that we should be seeing through this. The Word becomes flesh. He was an example of Yah dwelling in his Son, Yeshua. So we see that in him. Now this was really cool. The two craftsmen, just kind of some neat symbolism through this one. Bazazel, if you look into it, the name itself, you see the word El, you see image, you see house. Most translations will say that, like, if you look up just like face value of it, the translation will be in the shadow of El. So, and then we can also see a house in the image of El. So it's a house in the image of Yah. Like this craftsman who the Talmud says is 13 years old. That he's really young. I mean, has no way to be able to have the experience to know how to build all these sacred instruments. It's saying that Yah has come and miraculously give him the ability to see. Like he came and dwelt in him to show him how he wants all these utensils to build. And so the gematria on him was 153. Instantly we should all be thinking of the 153 fish that in John that, Yeshua, they're all out fishing, all the disciples, they fished all night. They didn't catch a thing. Yeshua walks up on the beach and he says, throw the net to the other side. And they take it and they throw it to the other side and they pull up 153 fish. So he redeems 153 fish on that day. Also, the sons of Elohim, the Hab ben Elohim, same gematria, 153. And who's the vine? Yeshua. I mean, we say it back there. We say Hagaphin, but so that means like from the vine. This is like you're part of the vine. So coffin is like the vine. So we become like the vine. So Yeshua's the vine. We're the branches. All those have the same gematria of 153. And here, just something else cool. So Bezalel, you all remember last week we read who his father was? Huh? So that was his grandfather. But good, yeah, that was really good. Yeah. So his father was and that means son of my light. So now we have a house in the image of El, son of my light, and his grandfather was her. And her means, so the plain meaning of her means freedom. The hint means the same word, her, also means like a hole or a void. So it's spelled exactly the same, but it's pronounced kur, like a ka, kar, kur. But so it has a different pronunciation, spelled exactly the same, but when you see it, it shows almost be thinking it. So it's almost like, to me, it gave me this idea that like Yah has, like he gave us a freedom, and that freedom was that we have to choose him. But because of it, we have a hole or a void in us. Like there's something missing in the Mishkan, his people, Israel. And what is it missing? It's missing his light. And when it does have it, will become a house in the image of El. So a lot of cool things if you look into just like the names, like they all have a lot of meaning. Ahoolab, I couldn't find much for the 124, but Ha-Sedut, which is piety or righteousness. So, I mean, that's, it's really piety, like he's really trying to keep all the commandments, instructions, and do it well and do it to his best ability. But you do see in his name tent and father Av, and then this little quotation in the middle is my. So my father's tent will come out in this, and if you break it down even further, right there is brother. So my father's tents is where my brothers dwell. So like if you're thinking of like where Yah wants to come, yeah, if you're thinking like where Yah wants to come dwell with his people Israel, like he wants to come dwell in us. Like we're his final place that he's really seeking to come dwell in. Like everything else is a progression. And another interesting thing, and you'll read it and we'll start reading here in a second, but like you'll see that like it always kind of blew my mind that you go from this where like it's super specific, build everything exactly as I commanded it, and then you see Solomon's temple, and he has his own sons. If we get to 1 Kings today, and we're doing this because a lot of times some of y'all have to leave or whatever, so at least you'll know what today was about. So 1 Kings is Solomon's temple being built, and he has his own guys that are endowed with knowledge and wisdom. They have the same spirit upon them helping them build it, but Solomon's temple is 3 or 4 times the size of the Mishkan. And I mean, you see the cherubim there, now they're 12 foot tall. They sit over the Ark of the Covenant. It's inlaid with gold. And like I always just assumed this was arrogance that made him do it. But then you see Herod's temple. That really wasn't built by Herod. It was built by Esther and Nehemiah. They're the ones that commissioned it and started building it. And then later on, Herod ended up adding to it, and they ended up calling it Herod's temple, but it really wasn't his. I don't give him credit. Yeah, history calls it his temple. I don't know who calls it what, but it's really Ezra. So it's the third, the second temple is what they call it, but it's really the third time. So it goes from the Mishkan to Solomon's to now, Ezra, Nehemiah's temple. And then I found this interesting. It's just for you guys that aren't going to stick around. Hopefully we can get to this today because it's really cool. But y'all know who wrote 1 Kings? So it was part of another book. So it was part of a book called, what was was it called? It was called the Kingdoms of El or something. So, what was it called? Slipping my mind right now. But it was part of a bigger book. It had 1 Samuel, 2 Samuel, and 1 Kings and 2 Kings, and it was called like the Book of Kingdoms. I think that's what it was called, the Book of Kingdoms. And so 1 and 2 Samuel were written mostly by Samuel, but Samuel died in the Davidic reign in David's time, and David's prophet Nathan ended up finishing writing it for him. So Nathan finished writing it, and then in 1 Kings, Jeremiah comes, 1 and 2 Kings, Jeremiah comes, picks it up, and starts taking it over, and it was all part of one book. But Jeremiah didn't write books. His scribe Baruch did, so it was written mostly by Baruch. But it was all part of one book originally, and then man has come and chopped it up into different books to kind of make it easier to break down, but it was all part of the Book of Kingdoms, I think, or the Book of, I want to say something like that. And then this is like literally Matthew 17:22, today's Torah portion. Just show how they all come together. Before we even start, so you just be thinking about all this stuff, this is when the Messiah asked Peter, he's like, do you pay your temple? I brought it up last week, and then I started reading it this week. I was like, oh, there's the story. So, but anyway, tells Peter, like, do you pay your temple tax? He says, yeah, sure I do. And he's like, all right, well, go down. And he ends up getting it from the fish, and they go, and they split it together, and they pay their temple tax. That's a really good story, and just seeing all the fruition of the temple being paid. And so that's my overview. And if you want to just start us off, brother, we'll.
Sounds good, John. Appreciate it. That was good.
All right, Exodus 35. Moshe assembled all the congregation of the children of Israel and said to them, these are the words which Yah has commanded you to do. Work is done for 6 days, but on the seventh day it shall be a set apart.
These things
Set up-
terrible, aren't they?
What's that?
Those mics are terrible. I
Okay.
think it's the battery, really. It's not the mic. Check.
Check. A little better.
You may have turned up the volume a little bit too, I think.
Yep.
I think they need
All right.
batteries.
Work is done for 6 days, but on the seventh day it shall be set apart to you, a Sabbath rest to Yah. Anyone doing work on it is to be put to death. Do not kindle a fire in any of your dwellings on the Sabbath day. And Moshe spoke to all the congregation of the children of Israel, saying, this is the word which Yah commanded, saying, take from among you contribution to Yah, everyone whose heart so moves him. Let him bring it as a contribution to Yah, gold and silver and bronze, and blue and purple and scarlet material, and fine linen and goat's hair, and ram skin dyed red, and fine leather and acacia wood, and oil for the light, and spices for the anointing oil, and for the sweet incense, and shoham stones, and stones to be set in the shoulder garments, and in the breastplates. And let all the wise-hearted among you come and make all that Yah has commanded. The dwelling place, its tent and its coverings, its hooks and its boards, its bars, its columns, and its sockets, the ark and its poles, the lid of the atonement, and the veil of the covering, the table and its poles, and all of its utensils, and the showbread, and the lampstand for the light, and its utensils, and its lamps, and the oil for the light, and the incense slaughter place, and its poles, and the anointing oil, and the sweet incense, and the covering for the door of the entrance of the dwelling place, the slaughter place of ascending offerings with its bronze grating, its poles and its utensils, the basin and its stand, the screen of the courtyard, its columns and their sockets, and the covering for the gate of the courtyard, the pegs of the dwelling place and the pegs of the courtyard and their cords, the woven garments to do service in a set-apart place, the set-apart garments for Aharon, the priests, and the garments of his sons to serve as priests. And all the congregation of the children of Israel withdrew from the presence of Moshe. And everyone whose heart lifted him up, and everyone whose spirit moved him.
1 second. So I'm gonna just hand this off to y'all to look into it to see what you find out. But like it's talking about how like there's all these things and the order that they're done in and the things that they're making. But we've already seen this in Teruma and Titsei. Like if all this sounds real familiar, because we just read it a couple of Torah portions ago. But there was an order to it, and y'all was like, make them exactly like this. And it says that he does. Like, I mean, he clarifies, like, done. You did an amazing job. You made them exactly like I did. But they're not in the same order. And it seems like there's something to that. So if y'all get a chance to kind of look into the changing of the order and y'all come up with any ideas, let me know what you find out, because it says they make them exactly like it, but the order of the things in it does end up changing. So I just think it's interesting. Go ahead.
Verse 21, and everyone whose heart lifted him up, and everyone whose spirit moved him, came and they brought the contributions to Yah for the work of the tent of appointment, and for all its service, and for the and no and necklaces, all golden goods, even everyone who made a wave offering of gold to Yah. And every man with whom was found blue and goat's hair, and the ram skin, fine leather, they brought them. Everyone who would make a contribution to Yah of silver or bronze brought it. And was found acacia wood for any work of the service, they brought it. And all the wise-hearted women spun yarn with their hands and brought what they had spun, the blue and the purple, the scarlet material, and the fine. And all the women whose church lifted them up hair. And the rulers brought shoham stones, and the stones to be set in the shoulder garments, and in the breastplate, and the spices and the oil for the light, and for the anointing oil, and for the sweet incense. The children of Israel brought a voluntary offering to Yah, all the men and women whose hearts moved them to bring all kinds of work with.
What verse you on? Verse 29. So the children of Israel brought voluntary offerings. So everything that was needed, it was just if your heart moves you to do it. Like, this isn't a requirement, it's not law. It's like if your heart moves you. And before you know it, we see Moshe being like, oh, stop. Like, their heart was moved. So, the interesting thing is that, we're starting to see that here among us. Like, we know each other, we know each other's needs. We kind of anticipate if somebody has a need, and we start to do that. So this is a picture of what Israel is looking like, coming together as brothers and sisters. We get to know each other, and we start to learn the needs. But, but this shows that, this was about, what really y'all was doing in your heart to move you to come and want to do it. And you see all the people show up. In fact, even sounds like he's about to go into, he sounds like a proud father, like, oh, the men showed up and then the women. And he's just like, Yah is talking about it like a proud father would, seeing his children do what they're supposed to. All right, you can go ahead.
I'll start back at 29. The children of Israel brought a voluntary offering to Yah, all the men moved to bring all kinds of work which Yah by the hand of Moshe had commanded be done. And Moshe said to the children of Israel, see, Yah has called by the name Batzalel, son of Uri, son of Hur, of the tribe of Yehudah, and he has filled him with the spirit of Elohim in wisdom, in understanding, and in knowledge, and in all work, to make designs, to work in gold and in silver and in bronze, and in cutting stones for setting.
I want to stop 1 second. For one, I think the mics are done. You can just turn them off. They're not doing anything. It's just making me lose my train of thought, them clicking in and out nonstop.
I can speak loud enough.
All right.
I can read very loudly.
All right. Well, first, so now we're seeing it coming together. The two chosen men, and it says that Yah has filled them with wisdom. And so I don't think you're here, Rigo, but I was just trying to explain to him these two men, their names. Rigo. Okay. Sorry. I was just saying, this reminded me of what you were talking about, though. So we see the Gideon story earlier, and you're talking about the two places this take place, Sukkot and Peniel. Well, the enemy has done a real good job of making the pineal gland and all this thing that they call the all-seeing eye, and they throw up their triangle on their forehead. And if you look at any MRI image of the pineal gland, you have two glands that look like wings above it, and it sits in this triangle. And scientists can measure a small amount of light that comes from it. you know, and it's like you always hear the enemy that they talk about fluoride doing things that will penetrate your blood-brain barrier to enter it, but like they harden, like they want to heart, like your brain is the heart in Judaism, like, and to harden your heart would be to keep you from having light outgoing, and you know, I mean, there's nothing you can do except for the Torah. I mean, like, walking His ways and instructions, sanctifying your sanctuary, cleaning it out, building things according to His instructions. Like when everything's done according to Torah and keeping the Father's instructions, then the moment that all that takes place and the Ark of the Covenant can be filled and the light of Yah comes, and it's always concealed. Even Yeshua comes back. He says, I come back concealed in a cloud. So He's coming back in a way that we won't even, like, you know, everybody thinks that we've got it figured out what the end's going to look like, but so did Judah. They were studying day in and day out, trying to figure out what the end was going to look like. And these two battles seem to happen at Sukkot and in Peniel, which, you know, that's where Jacob wrestles with Yah and, you know, starts to figure out like who he is and what his life's going to be like after that. Actually, not really, because after that he ends up going into the land, and you would assume he would, you know, it would be all easy going after that. And, you know, his son gets taken from him, and things, you know, don't end up happening until he finally enters Egypt later. But anyway, all right, go ahead, pick up. We have no mic.
Battery's been changed in the mic, so we'll try again.
Oh, we have new batteries? Oh, okay.
Check.
I think we need new mics.
Just a certain way. Okay, I'll try it again. If it cuts out again, then we'll ixnay the mics. All right, I'm gonna start back at 31. And he has filled him with the spirit of Elohim in wisdom and in understanding and in knowledge and in all work, to make designs, to work in gold and in silver and in bronze, and in cutting of stones for setting and in carving of wood, and to work in all workmanship of design. And he has put in his heart the ability to teach. In him and Oholiab, son of Ahisamach, of the tribe of Dan. He has filled them with skill to do all work of the engraver and the designer of embroiderer, in blue and in purple, in scarlet material, and in fine linen, and a weaver doing any work, and makers of designs.
So this is why, so you weren't here for this, so I'll kind of catch up. Bazalel means, like, literally in the name, we have El, image, house, and the shadow of El is like the literal meaning. If you were to look up Strong's, that's what it would say. But in just reading it, broken down, you see a house in the image of El. Well, just mentioned his father. His father was son of my light. So we have a house built in the image of El, son of my light, and his grandfather was Hur. And Hur, the literal means freedom, but the word like the kur, spelled exactly the same, means whole or void. And I wonder if like this whole or void is like the Father's given us freedom, but because of it, we have this whole or void in us where He can't come be seated in us until we start following His instructions. We sanctify our temple. I mean, so all this really comes down to was, I believe that we're the temple. He's trying to come make a place that He can dwell in us and bring us together in oneness as brothers and sisters. So in this one, you kind of see it come out in the names of these two people that were miraculously given the ability to make these utensils that they've never done. In fact, the Talmud says that there were 13 when, or Bezalel was 13 years old when this knowledge and wisdom was given to him, which reminds me of another story of a guy about around the same age who goes to the temple and everybody talks about him, like, who is this young man that has been given all this wisdom and instruction at such a young age? So So in the shadow of the temple, yeah. And then Aholiab, 124 is the gematria. In fact, you may not have been here, so I'll catch you up. 153 was the gematria on this name. We see Yeshua walk up on the disciples, they're fishing, and he tells them, cast your net on the other side, and they end up pulling up 153 fish. Well, sons of Elohim, B'nai, Ha B'nai Elohim, these sons of Elohim is 153. The vine, Yeshua is the vine, we are the branches. Kagafen is also 153. So all that's Bahazazel and Aholiab. We have tent, my father, so my father's tent. If you break it down a little further, you see the word brother in it, and means, the only other word that I could find with 124, there wasn't many, but it was piety, which is this sense of that he just really wanted to be righteous and set apart and do the things the Father had said to the utmost standard. Like he really had a piety about how he did things. So just catch up on the names.
If you remember, one of the kings of Midian was Zalmunna.
Oh yeah.
You see the Zal in the shadow.
Oh yeah.
Zalmunna meant to deny the shadow, so that's why they have to be destroyed. They're trying to keep us from under the shadow of God.
Yeah.
The enemy is.
Yeah.
Whereas we're supposed to try to be in the shadow.
Yeah. And then what you brought up today just had me thinking, is the two places mentioned in the Gideon battle and stuff, is that kind of trying to point us to where the true Sukkot is supposed to be, like in us, like this void that needs to, this freedom that we've taken advantage of and decided to, not walk in the ways of the Father. It left a hole in a void, and he wants to fill it with his light, and then we become El's image or his house that he can come live in. So we come like this guy that was just receiving downloads of knowledge, and we become one with brothers in doing this. We become true Israel. All right, who's got the next one? All right. Thanks, Mary.
Chapter 36. And Bezalel brought and Eliab and everyone wise in understanding, to whom was given wisdom and knowledge to understand, to do all the works according to the holy offices, according to all things which the Lord appointed. And Moses called Bezalel and Eliab and all that had wisdom, to whom God gave knowledge in their heart, and all who were freely willing to come forward to the works to perform them. And they received from Moses all the offerings which the children of Israel brought for all the works of the sanctuary to do them, and they continued to receive the gifts brought from those who brought them in the morning. And there came all the wise men who wrought the works of the sanctuary, each according to his own work, which they wrought. And one said to Moshe, the people bring an abundance too great in proportion to all the works which the Lord has appointed them to do. And Moses commanded and proclaimed in the camp, saying, let neither man nor woman any longer labor for the offerings of the sanctuary. And the people were restrained from bringing any more. And they had materials sufficient for making the furniture, and they left some besides. And every wise one among those that wrought made the robes of the holy place, which belonged to Aaron the priest, the Lord commanded Moses. And he made the ephod of gold and blue and purple and spun scarlet and fine linen twined, and the plates were divided, the threads of gold, so as to interweave with the blue and purple, and with the spun scarlet and the fine linen twined, they made it into a woven work. Shoulder pieces joined from both sides, a work woven by a natural twisting of the parts into one another. They made it of the same material according to the making of it, of gold and blue and purple and spun scarlet and fine linen twined, and as the Lord commanded Moses. They made the two emerald stones clasped together and set in gold, graven and cut after the cutting of a seal with the names of the children of Israel. And he put them on the shoulder pieces of the ephod and stones of memorial of the children of Israel, as the Lord appointed Moses. And they made the oracle, a work woven with the embroidery according to the work of the ephod, of gold and blue and purple and spun scarlet, fine linen twined. They made the oracle square and double, the length of a span and the breadth of a span, double. And there was interwoven with a woven work of 4 rows of stones, a series of stones. The first row, a sardius, a topaz, an emerald. The second row, a carbuncle, a sapphire, and jasper. The third row, a ligure, an agate, and amethyst. And the fourth row, a chrysolite, beryl, and onyx set round about with gold and fastened with gold. And the stones were 12 according to the names of the children of Israel, graven according to their names like seals, each according to his own name for the 12 tribes. And they made the oracle, turned wreathen work of pure gold, And they made 2 golden circlets and 2 golden rings, and they put the 2 golden rings on both the upper corners of the oracle, and they put the golden wreaths on the rings on both sides of the oracle, and the 2 wreaths into the 2 couplings, and they put them on the 2 circlets, and they put them on the shoulders of the ephod opposite each other in front. And they made 2 golden rings, and then put them on the 2 projections on the top of the oracle, and on the top of the hinder part of the ephod within. And they made 2 golden rings, and put them on both of the shoulders of the ephod under it, in front, by the coupling above the connection of the ephod. And he fastened the oracle by the rings that were on it to the rings of the ephod, which were fastened with a string of blue, joined together with woven work of the ephod, that the oracle should not be loosed from the ephod, as the Lord commanded Moses. And they made the tunic under the ephod woven work of all blue, and the opening of the tunic in the midst woven closely together, the opening having a fringe around about, that it might not be rent. Then they made the border of the tunic below pomegranates as about, as it might not be rent, and they made on the border of the tunic below pomegranates of a flowering pomegranate tree, of blue, of purple, spun scarlet, fine linen, twined. And they made golden bells, and put the bells on the border of the tunic round about between the pomegranates, and a golden bell and a pomegranate on the border of the tunic round about, for the ministration as the Lord commanded Moses. And they made vestments of fine linen, a woven work for Aaron and his sons, and the tires of the fine linen, and the mitre of the fine linen, and the drawers. This print is so tiny, y'all. Of fine linen twined, and their girdles of fine linen, and blue and purple and scarlet spun, the work of an embroiderer, according as the Lord commanded Moses. And they made the golden plate, a dedicated thing of the sanctuary of pure gold. And he wrote upon it graven letters of a seal, holiness to the Lord. And they put it on the border of blue, so that it should be on the mitre above, as the Lord commanded Moses.
Is that the Septuagint?
Yes, it's the Septuagint. And it's teeny tiny print, so if I skip lines or miss, I apologize. I'm used to reading Braille.
Yeah.
Big fat letters. So I'm struggling.
So that was detailed. So he's going through, he's making all the rings, and, we're about to get to the craftsmanship of Bezalel. But so, I don't know if you were here for that day, but I'm going to go ahead and give you my theory. So you kind of look at this, and we're already talking about that, like, Yahweh's desire to make his people like his dwelling place, but you see it even in the building of the Mishkan, So if you look at this, you see 3 layers. You see this top layer. These were actually 2 layers together, and the top one was maybe like the outside of like a calf skin. Nobody really knows. It's a weird interpretation. But right underneath it was a dyed red, sheepskin, and then you had this fat layer made out of goat's hair, and then underneath that there was this layer that is cherubim imprinted all on it throughout the whole pattern. And there are cherubims at the door here, there are cherubims on the door here, and there are cherubims in the Holy of Holies. And, yeah, you can kind of lift it up. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. But, if you look at just our bodies, how we're designed, we have our dermis, our epidermis, and then our fat cells. So think of this one as your dermis, the outer part, which is able to grow hair and, has kind of a protective layer, waterproofs you, keeps everything from the outside from getting in. And then underneath is kind of like the vessel and vascularity system, that these were part of one layer, just like on our body, the dermis and epidermis are connected. But then there's another layer, this just goat hair, this thick part. Well, the layer underneath our dermis and epidermis is our fat. So there's a layer of fat underneath that. This was the thickest layer. It was huge. Would have been just the women, it says, I don't know if it said it there or a little bit, that they were the ones that they even wanted to join in and participate in making this layer on them. And then inside of it, the Mishkan, so on the outside of it, we have the altar, the holy place. So if you were going to think of this as maybe, like we've been talking about, being like Panay, face to Yah, and he wants to make a dwelling place with us. Like he's come down off the mountain where he had borders set up, and he had this place above the clouds, and it just wasn't close enough to his people. So now he's like, I want to come down, live in your midst, and dwell within your tents. And he wants to show a picture of what that's like. Well, let's think of this little area as the face of Yah, like a place where he's dwelling. So here is these outer parts is like, you think of sacrificial system, meat, the cleansing waters, like these are the mouth of Elohim represented. You go inside, and the first thing you'll run into is the nose. You're going to run into the altar of incense. And, instantly make you think of a nose, like we're sending up our prayers, our offerings. Y'all can smell them. The next thing on the east, I don't know, was it the north side of it? Would have been the menorah. And you think of your eyes, like what do you need to see? You need light. So you have the menorah to see the light. Well, once that light's shining on the menorah, what's on the other side shining across? It's the showbread table. What's on the showbread table? A loaf of bread to represent each one of your brothers. So now your eyes can see who your brothers, or Yah can see you, the Israelites, however you want to look at it. Is it, and then we enter into the Holy of Holies. There's another big protective barrier that only Aaron and Moshe can enter into. And behind that, you have the Ark of the Covenant. It's this huge, it was made of acacia wood, which is a really prickly, trash wood from the outside, but it's a beautiful wood on the inside, but on the outside it's just thorny and prickly, and it's really hard to deal with. Just briars, and kind of like the wood that you were reading earlier that people are going to get tossed among. So just these huge briars, but once it's made into a nice wood, it's a great wood. And then you have the overlaid Ark of the Covenant with these two cherubim that are protecting the inside of it. But now these cherubim, they don't have a flame of fire protecting the garden, but now inside of them is the commandments of Yah. So we have the commandments that he's given us. We have a representation there of the food of the Father, which his word is our food to us that he feeds us with. And then we have the staff of Aaron next to it, like here, like I give you something to get you along the way. Like there's this picture of it. And then from the midst of this face, where we have the mouth, the nose, the eyes, and then we have the brain, where he says, like, in Judaism, that's where your heart is, your thoughts, your action, your deeds. Like, your heart's not here, there is a sense of thing, like they do use heart in connotation sometimes, but not when it comes to like actions and deeds and like a dwelling place for the Father. Like all that comes from up here, like he says, your heart, that's deceitful, like your eye, but your mind, like your knowledge, your understanding, what we're talking about with these two men, like their understanding, it came from an outward source that they understand in their thoughts. They can now get it. So, and then where would the voice of Yah come from? It would come right from the midst inside of the Ark of the Covenant. So it seems to me to picture like, and I was telling it earlier, I know this seems like super, Kabbalic or whatever they talk about, and I think it's that way for a reason. And Yah has done it like, he's allowed it like that. He's allowed them to take this amazing seat that he wants to come dwell in, and then the enemy is dwelling in other people's seat. And you see it. They throw up the little symbolism of the triangle, and they're telling you that, like, I already have somebody on my seat. They give me wealth, they give me fame, they give me everything I want in this world, and they're seated on it. And I think that's what they're doing when they say that. But we're building our Mishkan. We're sanctifying it. We're hanging up the curtains. We're putting our gold rings in. Like, that's what this life is. And, yeah, we're sanctifying it. And then one day, the Father, when he comes back for his people, he will come sit on our seat. And he can sit on all of our seat at once and unifying us to become one people. So when you see a picture of Yeshua, you think, well, how did he know that? Well, I think they're showing us, like, the Father could dwell in him. He's the first one that was able to just fully sit down in his seat from a young age and just, like, reveal himself to him. And, I think as Yeshua walked, the Father's like, oh, did you, probably literally in his head, like, did you feel that woman just take power from you? And he's like, what woman? And looks around, he's like, who took power from me? And, he had to, like, not all knowing, but he had to ask. He was like, I only know what my Father tells me. Like, when is he telling you these things? He literally, the Father was seated on the mercy seat in us. And then now Yeshua sits in that seat in the Holy of Holies, in the heavens. And we just read all the things, and he sits with us, literally on his shoulders. Like, we have these two stones. He's walking with the 12 brothers. He's carrying us on our shoulder. And he does keep us covering, his chest, his heart. And so, like, he is now our Kohen Gadol in the heavens. Like, he's literally, like, getting us to where we need to go. Where are we at? Who's reading? Oh, go ahead.
Real quick, the heart is your emotions.
Yeah.
Emotions are good for growth, but they're not really good for logic.
Yeah, it's deceitful, though. Yeah.
Like, the world today is all about, like, following your emotions and, like,
Just follow your heart.
And we're told in the Bible, like, don't follow your heart.
Yeah.
Your heart is wicked and deceitful. But yeah, so that's why a lot, like, Jews believe that the heart is your mind.
Yeah.
And
And I think that's what, like, God's trying to allow the enemy to do, to kind of show it to us. Because if you go to the Vatican, you'll see a 12-foot pine cone that's made out of stone that represents the hardened pineal gland, this calcified heart of stone, where the pineal gland will produce light. Scientifically, they can measure a small measurement of light coming from it. And if it's calcified, they can't, and I'm not saying that, no weapon formed against me can harm me. So they can poison all the water they want. They can poison our food and give us all, they can make us wear, poison every soap we got. And if the Father wants to wake you up because you're walking in his ways, he will soften your heart and he will give you like a heart of flesh. And that's what I think is more as it's talking about. We've always just thought of like this other thing, but he's talking about like your thoughts, your actions. Like if you're thinking about his Torah, his instructions, you're looking across the room and you see a brother or sister that's hurting and like you recognize that they need help. Like that is how you're building the Mishkan to build a seat for Yah to one day come sit on and really become a people. So, but yeah, you're right. That was good. Thank you for clarifying that because I can remember what comes from it. I think your love and desire comes from your kidneys, doesn't it? I think it does, like in Hebrew. Yeah.
that's why it's
Interesting, the whole idea of where the love portion of the human is in Judaism being the brain. It brings new meaning to things like, I was watching a series on Netflix, and the people in it kept quoting, all things work for the good, all things work for the good, all things work for the good, all things work for the good. And I'm screaming at the screen going, I'm those who love the Lord!
Yeah.
But we forget. I mean, this world has forgotten the second part.
Yeah.
And they're looking for the good, and they say, well, I'm a good person, so that applies to me. No, it doesn't. Not if you don't love the Lord.
Yeah.
But there's more to love of the Lord than feeling. And that's where people miss it. It's because they miss the Judaistic side of that whole thing, which is love comes from the brain.
Yeah.
The love of the Lord comes from the brain, and we have to engage our brain
Yeah.
to love him the way he asks to be loved. He asks us to love him by studying his scriptures and walking in those ways.
Yeah.
And we don't do it.
And we're all honest, like we all love with our brain too. Like Mary just said, like I mean, if your child, just constantly comes to your house and they steal from you and they, kick your cat and they do all these horrible things, like eventually you're gonna be like, listen, like I can't have you around. I mean, I may love you, but you're not somebody I can allow in my household anymore. And I'll do everything I can to keep you away from me because you're doing these things. I got one over here first.
Did you say earlier that about the rabbis teach that the tabernacle that was built by Bethel from the tribe of Judah allude to the future sanctuary that will be built by Messiah?
Oh, they do? Okay. Well, like I said, I think so because I think, the future, I don't know. I think he did build it. Like, I think he's building it now, right here in this room. Like, he's sanctifying a sanctuary of people to be like him. Like, it says we're the building stones. Like, we're these priceless jewels that are the floor of New Jerusalem, like this city. And, I think that we'll miss it if we, latch on to these ideas that we've learned our whole life And just like Judaism, I was saying, like, they studied day in and day and night, and then the Messiah was right there in front of them, and they all missed it because all they saw was this conquering king, David, and that's not who they got, so, yeah. They wanted to be free of Rome, but they weren't free from sin yet. I mean, they still were they couldn't treat the widows right. They couldn't help their neighbors. Like, they were, what did it say they were doing? Like, some tithing or what did it say, straining a gnat to swallow a camel? Like, I mean, they were tithing mint and dill and all these things that weren't even required of them while everybody around them was suffering. And, so... Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We are unified as one, but yet we're individuals. So God doesn't take away the plurality
Yeah.
of the individuality from us back as one.
Yeah. Yeah, and that kind of came out in the names here. Like, he's giving us freedom, but like he still wants us all to dwell in our Father's tent. All the brothers to dwell in the Father's tent. And so, yeah, I agree with that. Yeah.
Because they're living by their killers.
Yes.
To kind of tack on to all of this, we've kind of been listening to Robert Menace Friedman lately, and something that I really love is that he talks about like the contract of like marriage, and that's no matter what happens, you're married. You could hate the person one day, you're still married to that person.
Right.
Just like everybody here is our brother and sister, regardless how we feel about them throughout the, our life with them.
Yeah.
They're still our brother and sister, and I think that's so important for all of us to really understand. Is like, you were saying with like your kid could kick your animal, steal your stuff. They're still your kid.
Yeah. And Yah has a covenant with his children that he cannot break. That's why he'll bend the laws of nature and make it rain frogs and water turn into blood and make supernatural things happen that go against all the laws of his creation to redeem those people no matter what. Like he has to. So, yeah, and he's going to, and he is. Like, look at us, a bunch of, people in the middle of Russellville, Arkansas, waking up to the Torah and trying to learn Hebrew and get understanding of, who Yeshua was through the context of being a Jewish, rabbi 2,000 years ago, and, against everything we've ever been taught. We've been taught not to do that. If you do that, it's like throwing your salvation down the drain or something. And, and he's waking us up anyway to walk in his instructions.
There's like 50 scriptures up here, but it's okay.
Okay, well, just read a good one. Let me know. If not, we
I can't see the words.
You can go ahead. Where? Good question. Yeah, 37.
(37:1).
Yeah.
And Bezalel made the ark of acacia wood, 2.5 cubits long, and 1.5 cubits wide, and 1.5 cubits high. And he overlaid it with clean gold, inside and outside, and made a molding of gold all around it. And he cast 4 rings of gold for it, for its 4 feet, 2 rings on its one side, and 2 rings on its other side. And he made poles of acacia wood, and overlaid them with gold. And he put the poles into the rings at the sides of the ark to lift the ark. And he made a lid of atonement of clean gold, 2.5 cubits long and 1.5 cubits wide. And he made 2 cherubim of beaten gold, and he made them for the 2 ends of the lid of atonement, 1 cherub at the one end on this side, and the other cherub on the other end on that side. He made the cherubim from the lid of atonement from the 2 ends. And the cherubim spread out their wings above and covered the lid of atonement with their wings, with their faces toward each other. The faces of the cherubim were turned toward the lid of atonement. And he made the table of acacia wood, 2 cubits long and 1 cubit wide and 1.5 cubits high. And he overlaid it with clean gold and made it a molding of gold all around it. And he made a rim of a handbreadth all around it and made a molding of gold for the rim all around it. And he cast 4 rings of gold for it and put the rings on the 4 corners that were at its 4 legs. The rings were next to the rim as holders for the poles to lift the table. And he made the poles of acacia wood to lift the table and overlaid it with gold. And he made the utensils which were on the table, its dishes, its cups, its bowls, and its jars for pouring of clean gold. And he made the lampstand of clean gold. He made the lampstand of beaten work, its base and its shaft, its cups, its ornamental knobs, and its blossoms were from it. And 6 branches came out of its sides, 3 branches of the lampstand out of one side, and 3 branches of the lampstand out of the other side. There were 3 cups like almond flowers on one branch, with ornamental knob and blossom, and 3 cups like almond flowers on the other branch, a knob and a blossom, so for the 6 branches coming out of the lampstand. And on the lampstand were 4 cups like almond flowers, its knobs and its blossoms, and a knob under the first 2 branches of the same, and a knob under the second 2 branches of the same, and a knob under the third 2 branches of the same, for the 6 branches coming out of it. Their knobs and their branches were of it. All of it was of one beaten work of clean gold. And he made it 7 lamps, and its snuffers and its trays of clean gold. And he made it of a talent of clean gold, and all its utensils. And he made the incense slaughter place of acacia wood, 1 cubit long and 1 cubit wide, a square and 2 cubits high. Its horns were of it. And he overlaid it with clean gold, its top and its sides all around, and its horns. And he made a molding for it of gold all around it. And he made 2 rings of gold for it under its molding, at its 2 corners on both sides, as holders for the poles with which to lift it. And he made the poles of acacia wood and overlaid it with gold. And he made the set-apart anointing oil and a clean incense of sweet spices, according to the work of the perfumer.
So, you know what the almond blossoms are called? In Hebrew?
They're deadly to me, so I try to stay away from them.
So it's what budded on Aaron's staff. Remember, his staff was almond wood, and on it budded a zeet. That's where the word zeets come from. Like, it's pointing to like these little buds that we have on us that if I was just to look at it, like, what does it look like to you? Like a little tree, a little root system. And I mean, like, we're burying ourselves, we're planting ourselves next to living water when we come before his Torah. And we're getting understanding. These little zeets, they become big, strong, mighty trees. Like, that's what we're called to be. And that's, I think, just hearing that almond blossom over and over again on the menorah, this beaten gold that was just beaten from one solid piece of gold that was, 665 pounds or something, like almost 700 pounds of gold just beaten with a hammer. Like, I mean, that's a picture of us. Like, we're just this, he finally just, he takes his, not children and beats them into submission, but that's what it takes for us. Like, we kind of beat each other until, like, we finally, become something beautiful that can be part of his household, his temple. And you see it throughout all these, instruments that he does to reveal himself.
They all have purpose
Yeah.
in their intricateness.
Yeah, and I don't think we've scratched the surface of what meaning you could find in it. if you had a really good understanding of Hebrew and stuff, I mean, you can look at one or two words and spend hours and one letter and just be like, oh. Yeah, so, I mean, there's, like, that's why, in my opinion, like, this millennial reign will make sense, opportunity to just, him be like, you want to show you the blessing of this? Like, everybody meet over at Mount Sinai one day, and I'll show you the rock, and we'll show you, and I'll show you how it all came together, what it was pointing to, and you'll be able to, like, see, like, the operations of all of this taking place and understanding and all the festivals and feasts and keeping a millennial Sabbath. I don't know who else thought of this. I know I've told a few people this recently, and I want your opinion. If you can prove me wrong in some way, that would be fine. But so it starts off talking about a Sabbath rest, like that's what we're supposed to do. And so I've been thinking about the Sabbath rest, and Randy usually says. So Randy usually says during the millennial reign, like the Sabbath will just be like this time of, a Sabbath from war. And I'm wondering, like, what do you guys think as the children of Israel, what will it look like for us to be in a Sabbath millennial rest? So I've tried to fathom it recently, and so like I think that if you're part of Israel, you come into this millennial rest, keeping the Sabbath, keeping the Shabbats, you're following his instructions, and you get to you're part of his bride, his children that are coming to the land. Like, do you think that it seems to have this connotation of what we do here now? Like, you take a break from all work, all building, all these implements of work stop, and we take time off to study. And now all of a sudden, you're going to go from being able to live for 80, 90 years, max, 120 if you're super righteous, but most people don't make it that far, to now, if you die at 150, you're considered an infant, and you may live to be 800, 900 years old, because now the tree of life is back in the universe, and it produces new fruit every month. The tree of life is what brings back this longevity to the world. So now Mary and Ray, they enter into this millennial rest. They have this portion in the world, or Israel, that just belongs to like them and their family. It's a set apart place for them and their children, their grandchildren, their great-great-grandchildren. After a few hundred years, those numbers are in the 10,000s. After 500, 600 years.
So we won't need houses to live in? Is that what you're saying?
No, you'll need houses, but you won't build. So I don't think you'll build them. So there's still a whole world of people that didn't walk into the millennial reign, keeping the Sabbath. They're called the guests of the bride. The bride. They all come. They all will still keep a Shabbat, a seventh-day Sabbath. They'll still have to learn that in it. But now he's made this kingdom of priests that go out into the world, and they're his children. And your family may be like, listen, like we've heard about the people in wherever we want to go, and I'm going to send 600 of my kids to go be part of their community and teach them Torah and build a synagogue there and just really study with them and prepare them. But your huge part will be to you're the only ones that will really remember what it was like now, and you're walking into the millennial reign, and you're going to have at someday 10,000 grandchildren that have no idea what it was like before, and you have to teach them how to endure, because it says you won't make it to the end. It's going to be like in the days of, Methuselah, 960 or whatever it was. I mean, that still leaves in that 1,000-year millennial reign a time for you to, you're already, old enough there are 100 years left. That generation could fall off so easily if you didn't prepare them correctly for the release of the enemy for a short time. So I don't know if anybody thinks, I think about that all the time, about what it's really going to look like and how beautiful a picture, it'll be your family and all these houses connected and, y'all teaching, studying together, and it's up to you lived through this to remind them of how to endure once the patriarchs are gone and how to really, I don't know. If y'all can prove me wrong with scripture that that's not what it's going to look like, I'd be interested to see something, but that's how I picture what that's going to look like, is that, you and your family and you teaching them through, because that's the biggest question, especially we're talking to Randy. Randy makes me think about this all the time. Like he wants to start this big community, but how do you keep it going for the next generation, one after that, and it doesn't get weird, and people start, one leader rises up and wants to make it, they start putting Yah's name on an altar, and then all of a sudden they're a cult, and they're weird. Like we think that we could probably all walk into it, but can you keep that next generation from failing? And that is that you have a 1,000-year reign that you won't make it to the end of, that you have to prepare all the generations of those offsprings to endure when the enemy is released for a short period of time. And that just blows my mind. Like how, it's 1,000 years of peace, but they knew nothing else but peace the whole time. They didn't know war. Like, what does that matter? Like, I've never really known war either. Like, if you tell me, it just means 1,000-year of peace, but I still have to work. Like, I know what work is. I don't know what war is. Like, I was part of the military, but I still don't know what war is. So, it really doesn't mean anything to me either. 1,000 years of peace, like, I've been in peace, for the most part. I war the flesh and I war with sin, but, that's still going to be here too. Like, there'll still be sin offerings and stuff like that. So you have to, it's 1,000 years of teaching and training and, I'm guessing there'll only be 1 day a year for weddings. If not, you'll be nonstop planning weddings for your children and grandchildren, great-grandchildren. It's going to be intense. If you think about how massive it'll get, it's going to get huge, just you and your family. So, all right, one more.
Anybody? All right.
I got you.
38, 1 through 20.
1 through 20.
Yeah, 1 through 20.
He made the elevation offering altar of acacia wood, 5 cubits its length, and 5 cubits its width, square and 3 cubits its height. He made its horns on its 4 corners. From it were its horns. And he covered it with copper. He made all the utensils of the altar, the pots, the shovels, the basins, the forks, and the fire pans. He made all of its utensils of copper. He made for the altar a netting of copper meshwork, below its surrounding, bordered downwards until its midpoint. He cast 4 rings on the 4 edges of the copper netting as housings for the staves. He made the staves of acacia wood and covered them with copper. He inserted the staves in the rings on the sides of the altar with which to carry it. Hollow of boards did he make it. He made the laver of copper and its base of copper from the mirrors of the legions who massed at the entrance of the tent of meeting. He made the courtyard on the south side, the lace hangings of the courtyard of twisted linen, 100 cubits. Their pillars 20, and their sockets 20, of copper. The hooks of the pillars and their bands of silver. On the north side, 100 cubits, their pillars 20, and their sockets 20, of copper. The hooks of the pillars and their bands of silver on the west side. Lace hangings of 50 cubits, their pillars 10 and their sockets 10, the hooks of the pillars and their bands of silver. And on the eastern side, 50 cubits, 15 cubits lace hangings at the shoulder, their pillars 3 and their sockets 3. And at the second shoulder, on either side of the gate of the courtyard, 15 cubits lace hangings, their pillars 3 and their sockets 3. All the lace hangings of the courtyard all around were of twisted linen. The sockets of the pillars were copper. The hooks of the pillars and their bands were silver, and the plating of their tops were silver. They were banded with silver, and the pillars of the courtyard. The screen of the gate of the courtyard was embroiderer's work of turquoise, purple, and scarlet wool, and twisted linen, 20 cubits in length, and the height and width was 5 cubits, corresponding to the lace hangings of the courtyard. The pillars 4 and their sockets 4 of copper, their hooks silver, and the plating of their tops and their bands silver. All the pegs of the tabernacle in the courtyard all around were copper.
Good. Thanks, brother. So, now I talk about it's just going over the same stuff. I do like, I mean, there's a lot going on there, but like we've already heard this. So now there is some changes in the order of the way that they ended up being made and the way that Moshe was taken. And if y'all find anything there in a study on that, I'd love to hear it. Y'all want to do Kings? All right. 1 Kings 7:40. I'll start reading. Chapter 7, verse 40. This is Solomon's temple. This was probably written by Baruch, Jeremiah's scribe, and it was part of the Book of Kingdoms was the name of it. And they separated 1 Samuel, 2 Samuel, 1 Kings, and 2 Kings. They made them 4 books. But between the whole book was written by Samuel. When Samuel died, it was written by Nathan and Dan, David's 2 right-hand men, kind of his scribes, the men that he was with. And then when they left, they ended up being picked up by Jeremiah, and his scribe Baruch ended up finishing 1 and 2 Kings. So verse 40 starts off with, and Hiram made the pots. I didn't get a chance to look into these names, but I bet there's a lot of fun, interesting stuff going on, just like the name of the guys that did it. But these guys were, again, guys endowed from Yah on how to make these instruments. And when they did, they went bigger and better than the last one, And I don't know, I mentioned this earlier, I always assumed he was just arrogant and just wanted to build bigger and better because he was Solomon, he did everything bigger and better. But Solomon's temple is in no way, shape, or form in a picture of the Mishkan. And it even kind of alludes to that, but Yah says that, if you keep my commandments, I'll still fill it anyway. But, so truthfully, I think this one is 3 times bigger, Herod's is 3 times bigger, Ezekiel's is 10 times bigger. And it's just alluding to Abraham's promise that I will bless you and an offspring from you. And it's a picture of the house of Israel getting bigger and bigger and bigger as it goes on. So this is what Solomon's temple ended up looking like, and this is the account that goes along with that. 40. And Hiram made the post and the shovels and the bowls, and Hiram completed doing all the work that he was to do for sovereign Solomon on the house of the 2 columns and the bowl-shaped capitals that were on top of the columns, and the 2 networks covering the 2 bowl-shaped capitals which were on top of the columns, and the 400 pomegranates. Does anybody know what's interesting about pomegranates? 613 seeds. So they're you can take 1,000 of them, take out all the seeds, and most of them you'll be able to count 613. So pomegranates for 2 networks, 2 roots of pomegranates for each network to cover the 2 bowl-shaped capitals that were on top of the 2 columns, and the 10 stands and the 10 basins on the stands, and the sea on seas, and 12 oxen under the seas, and the pots and the shovels and the bowls, and all these utensils which Hiram made for sovereign Solomon for the house of Yah, were of polished bronze. So Randy's always talking about Solomon has 10 of everything except for the Ark of the Covenant. Well, this is that account. I don't think we've ever read it out loud before, but Randy always talks about it, and I'm like, yeah, that's cool. And I realized this week, it was the first time I really gone back and checked it out, and yeah, he does. So, and Randy's kind of idea is that these 10 will be spread out among the 10, nations of the world, and there will be places during the millennial reign that are similar to the Mishkan in Jerusalem. So maybe in the Americas, they'll use one of those 10 to build something. Maybe in Russia, China, all these major population places will get their own set of these utensils. But the Ark of the Covenant, the cloud of glory, will still be in Jerusalem, and that's where it will dwell. And also it seems to be dwelling in the 144,000 that Yah seems to get their renewed bodies. So, and then they can go out from there and teach others. So,
I looked up Hiram's guy that made all these utensils.
Yeah.
His name means exalted brother.
Exalted brother. So now we're getting further down, and it's not just now he's getting to be a little bit more exalted, and you see that the temple's more exalted, more glorified. So, and this was the last place that the Shekinah glory ever dwelled. Like, the Herod's temple never really had the Shekinah in it because it didn't have the Ark of the Covenant. So, so that's interesting. Where was I? Does anybody know? 47? All right. And Solomon left all the utensils unweighted because they were many, nor was the weight of the bronze searched out. For Solomon made all the utensils for the house of Yah, the slaughtering place of gold, and the tablets of gold on which was the showbread, and the lampstands of refined gold, 5 on the right side and 5 on the left side of the speaking place, which the floors and the lamps and the snuffers of gold and the basins and the snuffers and the bowls of the ladles and the fire holders of refined gold and the hinges of gold, both for the doors of the inner house, the most set apart place, and for the doors of the house of Hakel. Thus all the work of the sovereign Solomon had done for the house of Yah was complete, after Solomon brought in the set apart items of his father David. That's interesting that he calls them the set apart items of his father David. The silver and the gold and the utensils, and he put them in the treasuries of the house of Yah. Remember, read to 21. I'll go. And Solomon assembled the elders of Israel and all the heads of the tribes of the chief father of the children of Israel to sovereign Solomon in Jerusalem to bring up the ark of the covenant of Yah from the city of David, which is in Zion. And all the men of Israel assembled to sovereign Solomon at the festival of the 7th month, same time the Mishkan was finished, of Elathim, was that? I have it highlighted for some reason. So it's just what they called it. Which is the 7th new moon, and all the elders of Jerusalem came. The priests took up the ark and brought up the ark of Yah, and the tent of appointment, and all the set apart utensils that were in the tent. And the priests and the Levites brought them up. And sovereign Solomon and all the congregation of Israel who had assembled with him were with him before the ark, slaughtering so many sheep and cattle that they could not be counted or numbered. And the priests brought in the ark of the covenant of Yah to its place, and to the speaking place of the house, to the most set apart place under the wings of the cherubim. For the cherubim spread 2 wings over the place of the ark, and the cherubim covered over the ark and its poles. So now they're no longer these 2 little cherubim that just sit on it, but they're massive, like cherubim that sit inside the Holy of Holies. Good question. I want to. Yeah. You got that? 1 Kings chapter 8, verse 7, right? Just finished 7, verse 8. And the poles extended so that the ends of the poles were seen from the set apart place. in front of the speaking place, but they were not seen from outside, and they were there on this day.
Anybody know what that means?
What?
It's talking about the poles being so long. So you have a curtain for the holy place. You have the inner curtain and the outer curtain. They overlap. And when the priest goes in there, he walks between the two curtains to get to the Holy of Holies during. But what's happening is the poles for the ark are so long and they go this way that they make that curtain poke out. And so when he walks in there, he has to push the outer curtain out to keep from brushing against the inner curtain with the poles sticking up against it. And he walks out around those poles and in, and then he pushes the curtains out to stand between the poles and is described. So it's an interesting mind picture. When you read that little verse, it's like, oh, the poles were real long. But it gives you a mind picture of what's going on with that curtain before the Holy of Holies and how the priest has to push that curtain out. And remember how heavy that curtain was. It was so heavy that, 8 teams of oxen put the chair in.
Oh, wow.
Big, heavy curtain, so I imagine it was not an easy thing to push that curtain out away from those poles so you could walk back.
Also, him going in between the
Thanks, buddy.
made him a king at that one point in time. Yeah.
Just being in between the curtains?
Yeah, because of the 50 things on both curtains. What?
Verse 9. Verse 9, there was not in the ark only the 2 tablets of stone which Moshe put there, and Horeb, where Yah made the covenant with the children of Yah when they came out of the land of Mitzrayim. And it came to be, when the priest came out of the set-apart place, that the cloud filled the house of Yah, so that the priests were unable to stand and perform the service because of the cloud, for the esteem of Yah filled the house of Yah. So this reminds me when Moshe comes down from the mountain, like he's so glorified that the people couldn't even look upon him. And the Talmud records that he had to veil his face for almost the rest of his life, like that he couldn't just walk around. He was so bright and shining, almost like somebody had come and sat down in his seat and was panay with him for the rest of his days. They were face to face. If you read some of the hidden books, it talks about even Yah sending people to come, like angels to come take his spirit. They couldn't even do it. They're like, we can't come take your spirit from you. Like Moshe just like, I'm not ready. Yah had to come himself and with a kiss take his spirit away when he was in the cave. So just some interesting stories. And Solomon said, Yah has said he would dwell in the dark cloud. So even then he had to conceal himself. And Yeshua says he's coming in a cloud. Mary.
Somebody has a question.
What is it?
Is Horeb on the same mountain as Sinai or on separate mountains?
Yeah.
They're different mountains. Okay. Well, he says that. He says they're 6.5 kilometers from each other. Yeah. So you answered your own question. All right, cool.
I have indeed built you an exalted house, an established place for you to dwell in forever. And the sovereign turned around and blessed all the assembly of Israel, while all the assembly of Israel was standing. And he said, Blessed be Yah, Elohim of Israel, who spoke with his mouth to my father David, and with his hand has filled it again. So here he turns around and does the blessing, the Baruch that we do every day. Just blessed are you, O Yah, Elohim of all of Israel. And since the day, verse 16, since the day I brought my people Israel out of Mitzrayim, I have chosen no city from any tribe of Jerusalem in which to build a house for my name to be there. But I choose David to be over my people Israel. And it was in the heart of my father David to build a house for the name of Yah, Elohim of Israel. But Yah said to my father David, because it has been in your heart to build a house for my name, you did well that it was in your heart. Only you do not build the house, but your sons, who is coming from your loins, he does build the house for my name. Now Yah has established his words, which he spoke, and I have been raised up instead of my father David, and sit on the throne of Israel. And Yah promised and built a house for the name of Yah, Elohim of Israel. 17, 22 through 27. Huh? 17, 22 through 27.
All right, Matthew 17, 22 through 27.
A few verses. I think that's it.
And while they were staying in Galilee, Yeshua said to them, the Son of Adam is about to be delivered up into the hands of men, and they shall kill him, and the third day he shall be raised up. And they were deeply grieved.
Is that it?
Okay? Is this it?
I don't know. Look up. Okay. Oh, you do?
22 through 27.
All right.
So I'm at 23, and they shall kill him, and the third day he shall be raised up, and they were deeply grieved. And when they came into Kephar Nahum, those who received the tax came to Kepha and said, does your teacher not pay the tax? And he said, yes. And when he came into the house, Yeshua spoke to him, first saying, what do you think, Shimon? For whom do the sovereigns of the earth take toll or tax? From their own sons or from their strangers? Kepha then said to him, from the strangers. Yeshua said to him, then the sons are exempt. But lest we cause them to stumble, go to the sea, cast in a hook, and take the fish that comes up first. And when you have opened its mouth, you shall find a stater. Take that and give it to them for me and for you.
So here's the son of Yah who, he doesn't need to pay a temple tax. He's Yah's son, but he's like, you know what? We'll go ahead and pay it. Let's get that taken care of. Yeah. So.
He was always about setting the example, even in things that he wasn't required to do.
Hell yeah. Yep.
And so some people would say, well, why would a Christian pay a tax, support the temple institute, or why would a Christian? I'm just like, Yeshua did.
Yeah.
He did.
Yeah.
It didn't come out of his pocket, but he did. He could just as easily put that money from that fish in his pocket and use it for tonight's dinner. So,
That's interesting, too, that it's a fish that comes and pays his tax. You have the 153 fish, the sons of Elohim.